It is so good to be with all of you today. I'm honestly humbled by this opportunity, and admittedly, I am a little bit scared. I'm gonna go, and I will hopefully take all of us into some difficult things, but then hopefully we'll come out of those difficult things. But if anything that I share today feels hard, if it opens up a place of aching, maybe a wound, something unresolved, just be present in that feeling and know that you're not alone and that you're okay. I worked on this over and over, and I have many versions of this, and ultimately I have notes, but I'm just going to also try and speak a bit from the heart, because I think that that is the most meaningful gift that I can give to our time together. So as was shared, I came to Canada in 1989 as privately sponsored refugee. And my childhood prior to arriving here was a complicated one. As a child, when you're living within a system of oppression, you don't always have a sense of that. Children have that beautiful thing about them, is that they'll play in the midst of conflict, right? They'll enjoy one another even when they're hungry. They'll remark at the stones available or the sticks available as toys, and not feel that they're somehow hard done by. Children, I think, don't have that sense quite entirely. But when we left home, I was 6. No, I was 7. No, I was 6. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
6, 7.
6, 7. But when we left home, at that point in time, it wasn't possible to leave Poland in a legal way, because Poland, under martial law, had closed down its borders. And so in order to obtain travel documents, you had to fabricate a story of why you were leaving and give a guarantee that you were coming back. And so my mom and 4 of us at the time, my father had already snuck his way actually out of the country a couple of years earlier to work in Western Europe. But my mom kind of told us, we're going to go on this vacation. And so all you need to take is one shirt, maybe a sweater. We don't know what the weather will be like. We'll be back within a couple of weeks. And so we left behind our whole lives. Which wasn't a lot, but it was still all that I ever knew. And we went to a train station, and we were on the platform, and we were getting into this train, and my grandparents were on the platform, and they were weeping. And I thought, why are you crying? We're going on vacation. And I was like, no one goes on vacation. I had never heard of anyone going on vacation. We were going on vacation. But my grandmother just cried and cried. And my mother loaded the 4 of us into this train. And the train went for hours and hours and hours. And it crossed a border into what was Czechoslovakia. And armed guards got onto the train, and they separated the children from my mom and said, where are you going? We're going on vacation. We'll be back in 2 weeks. I hadn't realized, I knew I had it on me, but I didn't understand the purpose of it. My mother had sewn these tiny squares of fabric into our clothing and had put her wedding ring in it and had put anything that was of value and hidden it on our bodies, so that when we would be searched, or when she would be searched, or our bags would be searched, generally people didn't search children. Those things would make it across the border. And all of us gave the same story. We're going on vacation. But it wasn't a vacation. We ended up in a refugee reception center. We ended up being registered with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And then we were relocated to a camp with families from all across Eastern Europe, everyone hoping to make their way to new opportunities and new places. And, in the world, there are millions of refugees, but less than 1% are ever successfully resettled. So the odds of actually being chosen are very low. And it wasn't an easy life. And it was the first time, I was 7 years old, the first time someone said to me, "Where are you from?" And I thought it was such an odd thing. I was like, "Where are you from?" Because no one asks you, "Where are you from?" when you're home. They ask you, "Where are you from?" when you don't belong to where you are. And I learned to answer that question, but even to today it hurts, because it's one of those questions that makes you, distances you from the relationships that you're in the moment and where you are present in the moment. And it's taken me a long time to learn that, where I am from is where I am today. And I hold space for all of the places that I am from. And I don't have to choose between them. Anyways, we came to Canada, and that was really hard. And we were shit poor, and there wasn't enough. We were 5 children at that point. My parents struggled a lot. And then when I was 16, my mom passed away. She died in September. And by the end of October, CFS had called me into their offices so that there could take place a phone call between a social worker and my father as he relinquished his parental rights to me. My 2 sisters were above 18, they were independent. My brothers were 8 and 10, my dad kept them. And my dad said, "She's too much. I can't take care of her, she can't come home." So that was a pretty bad day. And so I went into CFS, and I think when you hear people talk about CFS being a system you have to survive, it is a system you have to survive. And honestly, I barely did. And I came out of it having, not just experienced continued and immense poverty, but that day that the social worker, apprehended me, was the one and only day I saw a social worker. No one came after that. I was given $187 a month for food, for bus to get to high school, for all of my expenses. So I was very hungry, and it wasn't enough. And I was lucky that my high school offered to give me a meal a day in the cafeteria. So that's what I did. Sometimes I had that meal a day. And I graduated, and I didn't have enough credits to do anything further. And I had promised my mother before she died that I would do something really practical with my life. And I had wanted to be a writer. And she was like, "You can't put bread on the table with writing." No offense to all the creative people here. But when you come as a child and you are aware of everything your parents lost and sacrificed for you, you say, "Okay, I'm gonna go to university and I'm gonna study business." And I did. But when I aged out of the system at 18, it is an instant where you age out. You turn 18 and then they're like, "You're an adult, you're done." And then the Minister of Finance sent me a bill for $900 for the heat I wasn't able to pay while in CFS care that I now owed back to the province of Manitoba. So I was like, "Okay, you got it, I'll get a job, I'll pay this back." But in the 2 years that I was in the system, there was so many horrible things that happened. And I was repeatedly just broken by hunger, broken by violence, broken by sexual assaults, broken by exploitation, just repeatedly broken. But what I learned in some ways is that in the 16 years that I was alive, my mother had managed to give me a lifetime worth of love. And the thing that kept me getting up was that voice from her that was, "You have to get up. You have to get up." And the trauma that is now a part of who I am, it wasn't one particular moment or like there were lots of particular moments, but it was so many different betrayals, right? It was betrayals by the global community and being displaced. It was betrayals by people who othered me in the process of my migration. It was betrayals, in some ways, of my family, right? It was betrayals of the CFS system, and a system that's supposed to protect children. And with everything that happened, one of the particular moments that I remember is that the day my mother died, I was in bed, and she died at around 1 a.m. with her sister with her. And then her sister came to me at 7 a.m. and woke me up and told me that my mom was dead. And I didn't have the capacity at the time to understand what that meant and how there was life before and there was life after, and that how immense that loss was. But what I remember of that morning is that the bus still went and people still went to work and everyone got up. And I remember going to high school that day. I went to school that day because I went into this kind of autopilot zone where I was like, I need to go to school. It's a school day. And then realized that there is no pause for what breaks us. There is no one's going to give you this moment where you get to shut down and they're going to stop everything and they're going to say, this is the worst moment of your life. Let's all sit in this grief together. But throughout my life, in part what I've learned is that what makes possible for growth or healing through events like that is when people are in fact willing to be present and pause and be with you. It is the ability to speak the truth of what you've gone through, but it's also the ability of those who bear witness and don't recoil and don't pull away, don't minimize, don't try and placate, don't solve your problem, don't, tell you statistics on what you've experienced. Yeah, because that happens. And what's amazing is it's been a definer. Definer's not an English word. I don't think. Okay, it's been a way of understanding the relationships that are the most authentic and true in my life. I'll tell you about a time when I was with a number of girlfriends and there was some wine involved and, explicit discussion, of intimacy and everything else. And, inevitably you get into this, like, what was your first time like? People share. And then I say, well, I was violently raped when I was 15. And it just stops the conversation. And the friends who love you and hold you sit with you in that. They just sit there and they're like, I'm so sorry. And you're like, it's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but it is okay, right? But but the amount of people though who honestly, regrettably recoil and are like, why'd you have to ruin the moment? and it's like, really? Like, because I need my truth to also take space in this conversation. And it's not ruining the moment. It's actually just what I lived through, and we're all sharing what we lived through, and I'm making space for your like awkward first time moments in the back of a car. Like, you can make space for my really horrible moment, right? And so what I've learned is not only that relationships make possible healing, but the ones that make possible healing through trauma are the ones who know how to be present with you in your absolute worst, in your greatest pain. And then because this pain becomes a place of understanding, and then that you turn that loss into love, and you can begin to with the support of others. That's the other part of turning trauma into growth and healing. One is self-declaration, but the other one is community support. So making space for the declaration and the truth to be present, and then what people do in the space of your truth. And when community surrounds you and holds you and loves you, and I'm totally not following any of my notes, but the talk. One of the things that I learned to do as I have faced a lot of difficulties in my life, and I don't say that lightly. I'm not minimizing it. Like, it's been a shit life, I can tell you that. I am so tired. I run this wonderful museum, and sometimes I close the office door and I cry because I'm not done hurting. I just have to shelf the hurting, right? Like, there's no statute of limitations on that pain. There's no like, oh, I'm done, I'm healed, I'm recovered, we never have to talk about it again, it's so long ago. That doesn't actually happen. Like, the pain and the grief and the trauma, they all live, and then your life grows around it. And the stage gets bigger, but the pain doesn't shrink. And I'm sometimes still there, and I'm still questioning why, how did this happen? How did I get here? And when I have to face these moments, I started telling myself somewhere along the way, honestly, was that saying of, this is not my mountain. And I was like, this is not going to be the thing that conquers me. I will not break. And it was that refusal, that absolute defiance of saying, I will not break. You will not get to take away my life and my happiness. Like, you will not get to do this to me. And then learning the beauty of being broken and whole at the same time. And how everything that I've gone through is part of the entirety of my story. And it's made me who I am today. But also that, like, I'm not done growing and changing because of those things. Like, I'm not done trying to examine them and understand them. And I don't know if making peace with them is the right thing, but I guess I've gotten to a place with everything where I'm just no longer afraid. And that's an odd place for me. And honestly, in the last couple years, I've only began to learn that my body is in a constant state of stress. That I think chemically I have a massive addiction to cortisol, like the stress hormone, because the only way I know how to survive is to be vigilant. To be vigilant, to overplan, to overthink, to anticipate, to prepare, be ready to run, be ready to fight, be ready to do something. Interestingly, excellent leadership skills. So, anticipating, planning, overthinking. So life is a funny way of making things happen. But this year, one of the things that I did is that I had to sit myself down and I had to say to myself, you know what, life is amazing. In the big picture of things, my life is amazing. And I had to sit there and say, my life is amazing. I am so blessed. I am massively anxious. I am terribly nervous, profoundly insecure, mostly very uncertain, always waiting for the sky to fall. And all those things are true. And then I wrote down this mantra, and I read this mantra to myself a lot. And I hope that I've totally gone off. This is nowhere, anywhere what I wrote, but it doesn't matter. But this is the mantra, and this is the mantra that I hope you can take away with you. Because it's the one that when I'm freaking out and I'm panicking and I feel overwhelmed and I feel afraid and I'm afraid of being poor and I'm afraid of being hungry, and I'm afraid of being homeless, and I'm afraid of being left behind, and all those things. This is it. In this moment, I am safe. I have everything I need. I am allowed to feel joy without fear. The sky is not falling. I am rising. Thank you.